Okay, my name is Jorgen. Great. I work as the CEO of a gaming company. Been working with games for 27 years. I grew up with horses, the manual way, in the woods, on the fields. I love horses. And it's strange for me today that no one actually mentions the horses or the emotions around it, and a lot about the data. And I come from an industry which doesn't talk that much about data, but which have tons of it. We talk about emotions, and we split things up into all kinds of different things. I run an innovation company. We're 15 employees, lots of freelancers. We're super experienced. I was product director in the stock listed company for 11 years. Had 6 top 10 hits here in France. Number 1 for 8 weeks straight. I had lots of issues here in France as well with technology, payment, and fragmentation on it. We've done quite a lot of development for Rikstoto. We were here a couple of years ago with a little test we did and got nominated for an award. We did the latest app. We're giving some input on other stuff. But in general, I don't touch horses. I mean, my passion is snowboarding and action sports. And I run Norway's biggest action sport community on Facebook. And I just counted before today, I had some time, that we had more engagement on that site today with 1/4 of the likes of Rikstoto than they had the last month, because we try to engage the users in different ways than just, raises some money. So I'm here today to talk about gamification. But first of all, horse racing in games have many, many similarities. It's highly competitive, full of emotions, a lot of events running it, so it keeps on being events all the time that people can flock to. It's easy to learn, hard to master. The many segments of players. I mean, you want to go for the luck players. Today, talk a lot about the pro players. In the games industry, we sector and deliver different experiences to different kind of users. High excitement, especially the mobile players who give the games for free, are very focused on the whales. We don't talk that much of that today. And we all keep on running services that goes on for years and years. I think the big shift in gaming is that a service that you saw 2 years ago will be very different today, based upon tweaks and adjustments that have been done since the launch of that service. Whereas I think in horse racing, in my knowledge, if you find a hit, you keep on going with it. That would be unthinkable in my business, because then it would die very fast. So you see this on Candy Crush, for instance. It's far from the game that launched a few years ago. In my view, gamification is much broader than what people normally say it is. It's using techniques from our industry, technologies, graphics, and the mindset to get people to do more of something, or less if that's what you want. So this is gamification to me. It is a lot of different tools you can use to make people do something. I'm a bit nervous. I'm always that when I talk. So, yeah. And what goes into society from games? I've been working, what do I see come into society these days? It's the techniques, the levels, the badges, the XP, achievements, all that kind of jazz. The graphics, visualization, the UI, the UX, how things are floating, how you get into things. We see it more and more in apps. Snapchat use a lot of game techniques. All the login loops, all the rewards, all the digital rewards, get users through with very low friction and use a lot of analysis to make sure that happens. Not a lot of barometers, but just reduce all the barometers. We've been working on that forever. It's very difficult. And of course, the engagement, the fun, what have you, the normal stuff. And a lot of tools, VR, AR, 3D tools. So we see these days, they go over into the other industries. And of course, lots of employees who have churned out of games. The games industry is like a dream factory. Most people leave quite fast, and they now go into other sectors. Some examples from Norway, Gamification, Future Group. You see it on the Weather Channel when they presented the flood in America, how it came up. That's former colleagues of mine from Funcom. We did a reading campaign for Norwegian kids this summer. 25% of the nation attended. We do gamification for vastly other sectors as well, like HR, Google Maps, planning, etc., etc. Kahoot is now a verb in the US. They made a game out of teaching. Norconsult made a game. They rebuilt a real harbor and a real train station that is to come. Just got a big award for that in Las Vegas. At Tennessee, they just rebuilt the whole main airport, a coming hospital, allowing people to play inside these universes before they become reality. And yesterday, I saw Umbra from Finland. I take them, they're almost neighbors. They come up with a 15, been working with them for about 15 years. They said they now have a breakthrough technology where you just take your phone like this and you can just go and scan the environment and you get it in full 3D, down to a grain of sand on a beach. I believe them. They're amazing guys. So it means that you can empower your community to actually track all your race fields without hiring anybody. It's possible. If it doesn't happen today, it will happen a year from now, 2 years. Technology is flying so fast at the moment that it's really hard to predict. My first peek into horse racing was I was elected by the government to give some opinion on the future of where does gaming go, how does it convert, together with other people, one from Rikstoto as well. And then I started talking to Rikstoto and Norsk Tipping and also other gambling organizations. And the first thing I learned was that the mindset of people who thought about horse racing was that they did not have a positive view of it. It was old people, they were smoking, drinking, helsetrøye was that, a t-shirt on it. And they got this through focus tests in the market that had been given to them. So they presented me the data they had been given. And other terms like old customers getting older, they die out, model shift, digital com, lots of resistance from retail. This is classical stuff. It's been happening for all industries these days, I think. It's not just for you guys. Illegal online gambling storms ahead from Malta. We need to innovate, but on what and how? I think that was the general, and it still is the general thing. What do you innovate on? I don't know. I'll give you some examples today. So, yeah. Yeah. And then, in my view, when I'm speaking to organizations in Norway, in Sweden, in the US, I see that a lot of organizations are bred for traditional brick and mortar. The budgets are bred for it, the planning is bred for it, it lacks the agile development focus that perhaps we in the games industry have parts of. It's very hard to get out of the complex UI, UX payment loop, the security, the anti-addiction warnings, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of challenges, and there's often one page to rule them all. One page that has all the data, shitloads of data, and I don't care about data. I don't think data is fun. I only care about data I can do something with. That's the only data that matters, because it's easy to get lost in it. So when I go into a new page, and if I get all this data, take a similarity between Candy Crush and EVE Online. EVE Online is a data-heavy game. It has 100,000 players versus Candy Crush with 1 billion downloads. I think that says something about the data-heavy games reaches a certain user group. The big user groups, the females, the young ones, are not necessarily looking for that data at first. They look for it later when they get hooked to it and want to go deeper into it. But if you present that data first, it's going to be a challenge. People are going to churn. They're going to get confused. They feel bad. I don't understand it. They're out. I know a lot about this from games. And I often feel that it's one product. I've seen a lot of different marketing campaigns. One of our freelancers even did some TV commercials for this with nice graphics. But they all lead to the same product with some alterations on it. So ongoing optimization of that product, in my view, I was also, to be a bit provocative there today, is that I don't see a diversification. I don't see a horse race where you don't know anything about the data, and the horses are labeled in colors. And it's 4 colors against each other. I don't know if it will work, but it's worth trying. And I think this is what the games industry do. They try, they try, they try. And when we see on the users, we have the same challenges in the games industry on the users. No one is watching linear TV to the same extent. The mobile is king. So an average Norwegian now checks the mobile 150 times per day. That's the average. They checked 4,000 people from it. They're growing up with games. They're growing up with flu entertainment. Always access to excitement. Very low emotional attachment to horses. And I think many see horse racing as one product. It's hard to get through. So the messaging you get, at least in my country, which is super good actually, it's present everywhere. Rikstoto is doing an awesome job having presence in retail and in physical space. It's very often about the money. Win money, win money, win money. Win more money, 10 million, 20 million, but that's the same message that comes from everybody. The legal ones, the illegal ones, so it's very hard to kind of, see what's unique. When it comes to mobile development, this is, this number, many put this first number here at 50. But the key takeout is that technology and software and products move so fast these days that fully predicting what will be a future hit is impossible. Impossible. You can guess, you can be educated, you can have, you know your attractions from before. But what the games industry is doing is that they're brute force innovation by just trying a lot. But they find ways and processes to come to the testing way faster. So when a guy here suggested that you should try it on one of the smaller race fields, I was like, yeah, great idea. Try it on one of the smaller race fields. Try 10 things on one of the smaller race fields. That would be a game industry approach to it. Test it, get some data, get feedback from the users, get feedback on how it pays, and then if it works, do more of it. And then if you do this with enough products, you will eventually see that this is actually the cycle for how mobile games development is. This is what people are presenting to investors. We need to create 20, 30, 40 different games to get one hit. And this is actually reality. It's not just a nice slide. And I think that this is important, this agile way of making things, seeing if things work, adjusting, adapting, being fast about it, not having to rely on external factors, but have a team who can look at this, I think is beneficial. And I also would like to, I had many discussions with Rikstoto, not shipping, bingo operators in the US. It's always about, you have some very hard parameters on winning or not. So what is winning? Is it just cash? I think that the horse racing industry is obsessed with cash. Rightfully so. I think it's a good thing because it's what a lot of users are here today. But I think there are many, many ways to win. And I'm not talking about giving away free cruises or tickets to France or stuff like that. I'm talking about digitalized systems. I'm going to go a bit into it. And a positive affirmation design system. So this is a way that making games, we shifted the games industry in the 90s. Blizzard was the first with it. So regardless of what you do in the experience, you get something. You always win something, even if you lose. And games these days are flooded with them. Actually, kids are so used to getting something that games that doesn't give you anything perform way worse than those who doesn't. And then now there come offshoots, the masochistic core, which actually flips it around, like with Flappy Bird, where the games are so brutal that that's part of the gameplay experience. And I think that this means that when you're going to reach out to youngsters with digital experiences, and you don't give them anything except loss, it will be very hard to get them back, ever. And this is why we, in the games industry, have mastered something we call fractional rewards. And this is think of a piece of a puzzle. If you collect enough pieces, eventually you get a prize. But you have many puzzles and many pieces and always something to strive for, and it always gives you positive affirmation back. So even though you lose, you get something back. And then it's a matter of, can you actually give out money? Well, how much do you spend in marketing? Can you shift some of the acquisition marketing money over to using the same acquisition on these systems? It's just a flick of a switch in the budget. It's the same thing it is to acquire and keep users. So I think it's about how you look at it sometimes as well. And the fact that I think that the lucky players, I think that's just something that everybody wants to reach. Or you want to have more players, everybody. You want to have the lucky player. But when the lucky player comes in the first time and they've seen the post win 20 million euros and they lose, the percentage that never comes back, this is the stats that I've heard, is frighteningly high. And getting hold of them again is really, really expensive. So working with systems on lowering the threshold, making it easier, trying to give people rewards and a feeling of rewards and collectibles, even in horse racing, because I think it's effective. And I'm not talking necessarily about the data people you have in the system, but when reaching new consumers. So I think that, yeah. In the games industry, we use a lot of engagement techniques. I put it as all roads lead to Rome, because it doesn't, every product has different ways of doing it. Like things you hunt for, things you get when you log in, bonuses for being away, bonuses for logging in often, bonuses for coming at certain time intervals, double XP in weekends, put money in now and you get something extra bonus for the next 12 hours, extra free spins, even many of the games are using these days. I'm not quite sure what will fit for the various horse products, But I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of stuff you haven't tried yet, at least that I haven't seen. But I haven't seen a lot of this, to be honest. So you can talk to me at dinner tonight about all these techniques you have for it, and I would really like to hear about it. Lots of innovations in gamification in payment. One-click purchases. How you log in, how you are actually getting into the user experience. In psychology, how we actually are adjusting win and loss ratios. I found that around 66% ratio for winning is what makes people most happy. It gives the least amount of churn or retention depending on the model you have. So you can actually find winning scenarios based upon churn levels, and you automatically adjust the difficulty. Of course, this is hard with the normal betting games and the normal odds. But we see, if you play Candy Crush as an example and you lose 4 times in a row, the game will automatically adjust down. The next level will become a bit easier. So you might feel like oh shit, I wasn't that good, but then I finally made it. And the next level is easier. Oh, I'm back on track, yeah. And then next level is like slam, back to hard again. Yeah, but so this is models that we build to predict how to keep you in the game. I don't see why you shouldn't do the same. Because what you are trying to trigger is maximum happiness, emotions, making people be happy with your horses. I'm not quite sure why I can't look at these things, because it's always, the odds, the things, but you are building services, products, life cycles. I think you can do a lot more of these things, and I think you can test it quite cheap, because you don't need to build expensive systems to make it. You can build it on top of your existing systems. You can plug it in. You don't need to build a whole infrastructure, back-end, a server. Like when we work with Rikstoto, we haven't touched any of the technology. We just plugged onto the servers, their push systems, SMS systems. Yeah, it's easy. It doesn't have to be complicated. Depends on who you work with. So I think that horse racing as a service, as many services, should be explored in the future. I would love it. I would love to have, because I don't care about data, but I care about horses. It could be casual games, mini games, taking the database of horses you had, having races without any riders at all, with VR cameras, have virtual horses in the races where people have trained themselves against real horses, color-coded races, simulations, adoptions, crowdfunding. You could do, people go together to invest into organizations. I think you've done that in Norway a bit. Esports, where people actually are having to be an esport champion but not riding. There are a lot of ways you can look at innovating this industry if you want to. Because I think it's endangering your core message as well, but I think it's worth trying to a certain degree and testing innovation fields, because it turns out to work maybe 1 in 20 times. But if you don't do those 1 in 20 times, you won't get to those super successes. That's the main message, I guess. And of course, I think that when I see horse racing today, I love the ATG, the pony the shows they've done. It's super cool. But I think that there's a lot of different graphics all leading to the same service. But if you look at the games industry and all the other things, we use adaptive graphics, targets, UI, UX, data, information, depending on the target audience we're going to reach. So you don't have different marketing and then reaching all to the same game. Some do if you're very big and you're exploring, but it means that you choose something for that specific target audience to test it to see if that triggers. So here are some different ones. We did a Lost Justin Bieber cover, a MadCon cover. This is for the firemen in Norway with the kindergarten. It was also a bingo operation. Coca-Cola wanted something on their machines, and the pension fund for seamen in Norway, where they wanted happy images of rich pensioners that have retired. Very different audiences, different graphics, different UI, different UX. It all builds on the same technology. This is super cheap to change. This is just front-end kind of, it goes very fast and it's cheap. Not difficult. I think you can get any student almost coming out of school to do it. This is easy. And I'm saying that I'm not the programmer. So yeah. I think that also when the marketing managers, when AI was presented here before today, I think that AI is a tremendous opportunity for you as an industry. Not necessarily for the races, but for the marketing. I mean, you can start to actually get data streams and provision and find the right users. I know Google would love to talk to you about using their AI to get hold of the right users for the right audiences for the right products. There's a lot more to AI than just about the races. It's about how to acquire users, what kind of messaging you have, having hundreds of different messaging, GIFs, videos. It doesn't matter. You have to apply all of it. You have to apply streams, YouTube, Facebook, social, Instagram, whatever the next name is. I'm getting too old actually to follow a couple of them, but I have kids, so it's good. It really doesn't matter. It's about the mix of channels, but actually keeping them up. Keeping up the level, because if you're going to do any of the marketing, so here I showed a Facebook ad from Rikstoto. I got it, I think, 8 times since I left Norway. So Rikstoto has a double jackpot for 20 million on Saturday probably, and I click on it and I get to this page on the right side about my winning chances for the race. But when I see that image and I can win 20 million, I want to put my money in now. Because I don't know much about horses, but I want to have a chance of winning 20 million. I want to push it and buy it. This is not possible. I have to go through a lot of stages. If you push on a games commercial, you are inside that game very fast. I mean, we're talking seconds. And we know this because we know we only have seconds. Because if we don't reach you, convert you, and get you in within a few seconds from your click, you're gone to the next product. And I think this is the relation for horses as well, because you are competing with a lot of other sports. So how many seconds before I see your ad until I can buy something, what you just advertised to me? And I think there's a lot of stuff that's coming out of the games industry here. This is not gamification, this is marketing, but also things like second offers, discounts, a lot of techniques we use to make you buy more. Yeah. And of course, social glue. I think you are already doing great stuff on the social stuff. I think that you have the horse tracks, you have the history for it, you have teams, you have experts. And you can build things on top of things. This is something we did for Game of Thrones, for the premiere of the new season, where we took Kahoot technology, so everybody in the cinema theater could join different teams for a quiz. The other one is for all the pubs in Norway. We took, with Kahoot, we took Kahoot technology on top of it, so all the pubs could play together, but make it look like a soccer thing, so the best guy in the pub is the one which is a striker. Again, just reusing technology, taking data, parsing data, but wrapping it in a new format, which engages. You don't change any of the base technology, you don't change the races, you don't change anything pretty much, but you look at new ways of presenting it in gamified manners, I guess. So, yeah. The last thing we looked at for Rikstoto, I asked if I could show it. We're not going to present it later on. Was one of the most popular, the expert, where the expert teams are betting. So this is the way it looks today on the left. So we got a few hours. Can you give us some new inspiration? We made some user studies. What are we going to do with this? We didn't look at horse racing at all. We actually looked at crowdfunding investment, which is going really up these days. I'm not saying that it's not finished. We made a simple prototype of it, but presenting it much more like a game. One-click purchases, much clearer who it is, clearer colors, no screaming emotions, leading you to the right place on the screen, sexier presentation of the experts. I think it's quite easy not to change the base technology, data, products, or structure beneath, but to actually look at and experimenting with things on top, even experimenting with different tops for different users. So people get different pages depending on where they're coming from. And I think that when I speak to a lot of different big organizations, and I see that often they're so hooked up in technology. But I think that the road you're on and what you want to do that's what should dictate your technology. And be really careful about too innovative technology in my that is stable and feel snappy to use is more important than it being exactly in line with what you already have. I think that whatever gets you to test new products to new markets and users faster, more efficiently, and which is scalable afterwards, it's a better approach than trying to think, from the payment server to the all the way up here. I mean, skip it. Can you get the data you need out? then wrap it differently on the front end. I'll make it sound really simple. It's not that simple, but of course, the focus is not to be dragged down by technology and history of technology, but rather to use all the modern technology and see what it can do without making massive investments into it. I'm soon done, by the way. And first of all, I think that often when I speak, people get confused about lots of words or things I say, but it is the same words I'm using as it was 30 years ago. You know, it's easy to decipher a lot of the words. It's just that we have found new meanings for some of the words. So when it comes to acquisition or retention or monetization, you know, it's get customers, keep customers, make money on customers. If you drill down all these fremmedord, was foreign words, and try to think about what they actually mean, so you can actually start to dissect what we are talking about. How do you get customers? How do you give them emotions? How do you keep them around? How do you make them give you a lot of money? And then you have different delivery platforms, VR, AR, mobile, Android mobile, Xbox, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, that's just diversification to reach more consumers on more platforms. This is the criteria for Rovio when making new games. Does it create excitement? Does it, you know, for certain user groups? Will it create engagement? And can you test it? What is the core loop of it? And will it create retention? Will it make people stick around again? I would say that, you know, Rovio is pretty good at these things, but not always. They do a lot of mistakes too, but they keep on doing mistakes and they think it's okay. 52 tries was the amount of tries it took to make Angry Birds. 52 tries. So yeah, number 52, yeah. More than anything, make it super simple to get started. Press start, and then it starts. I think the fewer barriers you have in your own development, the user have in their start experience, even though you're going to get them into hardcore racing afterwards with all the stats, all the data, all the tracks, the easier you can nudge people through. People who want more data, they will quickly find it. They will be interested in finding it. They will look for it. They will press on buttons. You can use then UX, UI, tutorials, point people. You want more data? Click this question mark and it opens up Excel heaven. But I think you will find that not a lot of people are initially interested in that. And we've seen this again and again and again and again in games. People don't understand. You know, we lead them by the hand as much as we can, and then we need to more work on when we let them go, so they don't feel offended by us. So it's like, do you think I'm stupid? And then they leave us because you hold them too long. So this is a fine art as well. I think about 10.32 minutes is the optimal retention for first time playing in a mobile game. 10.32 minutes. That's when you should let people go and be out. It will give you significantly higher retention than, for instance, 20 minutes or 7. There's a few million games data to back it up. And I think that's it from me. I'm a few minutes over time. I hope it was somewhat interesting. I'm not quite sure how I should pinpoint this exactly here today, but I just wanted to give you some input from my industry. In my view, the more you try to innovate on stuff, which is not just the core business, the more innovation experience you get, the easier it is to innovate. You know, it's super easy to come up with, you know, hundreds of potential ideas that's possible. Which one are good? You know, the more you do of these things, the more you learn about it. If you share the knowledge, because it seems like, or what I hear here today is that it's you guys against the world. So if you find a forum to share the data like you do here, work together, it seems like you can multiply that innovation factor and not just look for the one thing. You know, it's not just one thing, because it's going to be many things in many ways for many user audiences, I believe. So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you very much to Jorgen. Again, lots to take on board there, lots to think about. Again, we've heard so many different ideas, lots of innovative suggestions that I think we can go away and mull over to see how we can adopt it for racing and betting. Before we let Jorgen go, any questions from the audience, please? We have one there. Hold on one second. You're going to have to catch the box. Ready? Okay.
Thank you for that. I was more scared of the box than anything. One of the things that you were talking about was the one click to buy, to get into sale, and sometimes in horse racing there's a legal requirement that doesn't allow that to be possible. Do you think that we should focus more on trigger sales at that point and get into that financial relationship with them on a non-bet, or other suggestions?
Riksdata had a lot of issues on that, and we managed to bypass it by being smart about it. So it's about how you store cookies. It's about, you can get to the one-click purchase depending on whether it's illegal or not in your country. But there are many ways around this. How you structure it. So if you already have the data of the user, they're in the account, they have a credit card on file or some kind of credit, they should.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm thinking about a brand new customer, so you
Okay,
can't get from a one-click. You need a lot of information.
Depends on where you want them and where you have them. So if you come through the app stores, you could do one click. But then you're going to lose 30% of your margin, and if you're allowed through that. Besides that, you just have to go through the payment registration as smooth and as easy as possible. If you can fetch the data from other sources like Facebook, if it's legal for you, or other sources, pre-fill the data, use PayPal, use other services like in Norway you have something called Vipps now. I think this is coming in more and more countries where you don't need to spend all the time on actually filling in the data. But in general, make the whole registration experience as few steps as possible. Only take the data you need to get the payment, and you can rather come back and actually ask them for more data later on. And you can do this in multiple ways. You can give them bonuses to put in more data. You can urge them to do it, or if they want to have longer subscriptions or something, you can ask them for more data at that point as well. But yeah, the fewer steps, the better. We had 14 steps in one of my companies in 2001, and we reduced it to 3 back then, and managed to see like a doubling in the amount of customers that got through. It's huge differences, and you can just track it, and see the difference, test different things.
Great, thanks very much to Jorgen, and really appreciate your input today. Thank you.